Alrighty, I've been slacking for 2 months, but now I'm here. Time to start part 3 of Chroma Key Theory, the final part of my grand venture into the color theory of FNAF. Let's just pull up the script to record this, and that's over 20 pages. Okay, never mind, I'm splitting this up. Now, I know, I've been hyping up this video that's gonna solve the lore and give my grand answers on the Mimic and Glitchtrap and Golden Freddy, all of it. But there are a few smaller elements that are more or less clogging up the script since I felt it was necessary to address them. So I'm addressing them here, and worry not, Chroma Key Theory Part 3 is still going to be a huge video with over an hour's worth of analysis and theorization with all that good stuff about Glitchtrap and Golden Freddy and Edwin and whatnot. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. If I remember correctly, I left you guys on a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of part 2. John, roll the clip, please. And all of this purple talk will be better discussed in part 3, baby. That's right, cliffhanger. Right. I never answered the question of Cassie's curious consistencies with her compatriots of colorful characters. And while I'm at it, I have answers on the origins of MXES and some insights into Princess Quest. So, without further ado, let's talk about just that. To start off, let's return to Cassie. Cassie's color palette is red, green, and purple, with the tiniest bit of blue. Now, Cassie obviously shares a similar palette with the Bonnie bully from FNAF 4, what with the red shirt, brown skin tone with dark brown hair, and denim-colored shorts. This has caused most of the fandom to come to the conclusion that she is the child of whoever the Bonnie bully was after he grew up, and honestly, I like it. It's a very minor detail, but it's a wonderful example of theories being able to be made on the basis of color theory and visual design similarities. Also, it's literally the same thing as that Gregory is none other than the crying child meme. But onto her color scheme in the context of Ruin. I made the point in part 2 that Cassie serves as a foil character to Gregory, since while his color palette lines up pretty cleanly with Glamrock Freddy, blue, orange, and red, Cassie's lines up with Roxy, purple, green, and red. But I'd like to expand on that color parallel to all of the Glamrocks, since it allows me to make a broader observation about the Glamrocks as a whole. Every single Glamrock contains the color red in their palette from Security Breach through to Ruin. Freddy, Roxy, Monty, Chica in the form of her heavy pink color palette, even Bonnie. These are their designs in Security Breach, and Bonnie's cut out of what he would have looked like pre-Ruin. And here's what they look like when we encounter them during Cassie's journey into the Pizzaplex's Heart of Darkness. All of them maintain the color red throughout their design, which is a pretty solid through line. Not every band of animatronics will have a single color be used in every member, but when they do, it's red, those being the toys and the rock stars. And I think this theme of red reflects their violent natures, and the intensity of their personalities. Even in Freddy's case, we see in stories like GGY and Escape the Pizzaplex that all of the Glamrocks have the capacity to be both friendly and aggressive in certain situations, and I would think that translates over to the games, despite the book's non-canon status. Now for purple and green, which in Security Breach only shows up on 3 of the 4 Glamrock animatronics present. In the case of purple, Roxy has purple arm and leg warmers, Chica has purple eyes, and Monty has purple gloves, feet, glasses, and shoulder pads. And for green, Roxy has a green streak in her hair, Chica has green earrings and gloves, and 1 green leg warmer. We love an asymmetrical queen. And Monty, well, he's green. All of him's fucking green. They also share a small yellow element on their faces. Yellow eyes, yellow sunglasses, yellow beak. Something I think could easily be a nod toward all of these characters originating as Fiona Mori designs in Secret of the Mimic. Now, I do have to participate in what I've been doing for the last 3 videos in this series and lightly touching on Glitchtrap but not getting too into it because that's what part 3 is going to be all about. It's the Glitchtrap video. But I will be trying to explain a lot more of the supplemental elements of his presence in the series, so I need to say this. I believe Glitchtrap is a combination of the William Afton and the Mimic program, specifically a copy of the M1 program. Call it M3, call it whatever you'd like. It's based on M1, but molded into Afton's desired shape in order to act as his vessel in the digital realm. To put it as simply as possible, green for the Mimic, purple for the Afton. So looking at our Glamrocks, we can see elements of purple and green all throughout Roxy, Chica, and Monty's designs. This is probably the clearest illustration that we have that these Glamrocks are subject to Glitchtrap's control. They're obviously more than that, as evidenced by the presence of red and yellow, those elements reaching back to their origins in MCM, but in the modern day, they are the products of Fiona's labor, but subject to the will of Afton through Glitchtrap. Who'd have thought? The capitalist man is profiting from the hard work and creative endeavors of a woman. Art truly does imitate life. And speaking of red and yellow, fellow theorist Narrow Raven, the accursed partaker of mayonnaise on pizza, recently released a huge video on the timeline of the Steel Wool era, link in the description, in which he mentioned a very interesting element in regards to the colors red, yellow, and green. He likened those three colors to how in control of their actions each Glamrock was. And for that point, he gave two prime examples, Escape the Pizzaplex and Ruin. I'll be focusing on Ruin here for the sake of sticking to what we know to be games canon material, but in Ruin, when viewing the Glamrock animatronics in their ruined state through the Vanny network, two of them will show up as red wireframes, those being Chica and Monty. Roxy will show up as green eventually in the emotional moment where you deactivate her, but what of our dear Fredster? As I said in part 1, he contains no purple or green elements throughout his base design and security breach, and for the most part, he is harmless to Gregory unless he runs out of power. But let's look at Glamrock Freddy in Ruin. Any evidence of the upgrades or changes he sustained in security breach, all purple by the way, are notably gone. His hands have been stripped of their casing, his bow tie is missing, and so is his head, which would have contained the eye and voice box upgrades. However, we see something interesting in his chest cavity, which in itself suggests that the Princess Quest 3 ending is the canon one. A green and purple gift box. Now what on earth could that mean? Well, I certainly think that this is meant to show us that despite Glamrock Freddy completely disappearing when viewed through the AR network, he has become subject to Glitchtrap's control, since he does follow and try to kill Cassie. And this lends nicely into the idea that Glitchtrap is the one in control of the AR network we see in Ruin and Help 1 and 2. Now to tie it up with Cassie, she gives Chica her voice box back. She puts Monty out of his misery, and she deactivates Roxy, apparently resetting her to some sort of safe mode like what we see happen to Freddy at the beginning of Security Breach. We see the green AR holographic shell of her old self around her as Cassie deactivates her, because the evil, artificial stuff is being flushed out of her, leaving the natural green in its place, which lets her protect Cassie from M2. But I've made mentions of this AR world, this mysterious new mechanic introduced to us in Ruin with the Virtual Augmented Neural Network Integration, or Vanny mask, which allows us to see into this strange digital world where certain objects just don't exist and new ones show up. It bends the laws of reality, which is something mentioned in-game as Cassie repeatedly questions aspects of the AR world, and it is the home of the Helpy program. And most importantly, it's purple. Everything in the AR world gains this purple shader over it, and many objects become purple wireframe versions of themselves, almost like their textures are missing, despite being real objects. And in this AR world, we meet an interesting creature, a manifestation of the Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage Security System, or MXES for short. And this thing is fucking weird. A blue, legless rabbit with the eeriest grin I've ever seen antivirus software give me, and when it gets you, its jump scare animation flickers with green and purple artifacting. Well, Technically it's magenta and green, but it's basically purple since that color doesn't really exist in additive color. Oh, what's that? You don't know what additive color is? Well, time for the obligatory edutainment section of this video. Remember when you were being taught about colors back in elementary school, and you were told that red, blue, and yellow were the primary colors? You mix them, you get orange, green, and purple, which are the secondary colors. And then, you mix like red and green, or orange and blue, any complementary color, and then you get a muddy brown or a black. Now that system only works for physical pigments, paint, markers, Play-Doh, etc. It's called subtractive color. When light hits an object, most wavelengths are absorbed, and only the reflected one reaches your eyes. So for something you perceive as red, the object in question is absorbing every frequency of light except the one reaching your brain and reading as red, which is being reflected to your optic nerves. Everything else is subtracted. Mix all the pigments and you'll roughly get black. But digital technology, like screens and stage lights, don't absorb light. No, they emit it. Your eyes have 3 types of cone photoreceptors that absorb 3 specific kinds of light. Short for blue, medium for green, and long for red. Notice that those aren't the traditional primary colors. That's because light uses additive color, otherwise known as RGB, red, green, blue. And these combine to make the secondary colors of cyan, magenta, and yellow. And instead of starting with white and subtracting to black, they start at black, no light, and add up to white, every color of light. This very video is made up of RGB light using additive color. Any given digital image is really 3 layered images, a red layer, a green layer, and a blue layer, overlaid into one cohesive whole. In older cameras and display systems, those layers didn't always line up perfectly, creating that rainbow fringe that we now call chromatic aberration. Modern tech minimizes it to a nearly invisible degree, but you can still add it to something using digital effects. So with MXES, you're not really seeing actual chromatic aberration. No, you're seeing a deliberate recreation of archaic digital artifacting, and it's not purple. In additive color, red and blue combine to form magenta, which can look purple depending on the balance of it, but the effect is just offset red and blue layers stacked together. Functionally, sure, it reads as purple, but technically it's only the digital equivalent of it. This is only important because throughout all of Ruin you're technically seeing a bunch of magenta that looks purple, and it is interesting to see a digital entity like MXES flash green and its best approximation of purple, despite itself being a more indigo blue color. But I think that green and purple is our ticket to understanding MXES's origins. I think that our dear ruinborn friend was originally part of William Afton's way to contain the mimic. Think about it. We see MXES come from and then get pulled back into the F10 and 4 console, which would presumably still have M1 in some way still inside of it. And yes, it is the same console, just with some changes to the paneling. Same lights, same everything, except for the panels that show the letters MXES. And what is the MXES rabbit shown to be throughout Ruin? A security system. All of the rabbit-shaped security nodes are the same shade of blue of the MXES rabbit, and you can only seal it inside the MXES console after all the security measures have been disabled. And how does it try to stop you from doing that? By preventing you from being in the AR world, a space created by the Mimic program, by summoning the Glamrocks, which are under the control of Glitchtrap, which is a version of the Mimic. It's an anti-Mimic system that itself is a Mimic. It's the Cradle program that M1 talked about in Secret of the Mimic. But I just said it was William Afton's way of securing the Mimic. How does that line up? Well, maybe it didn't always look like a rabbit. and it definitely didn't exist in the AR world back in MCM times. I'm not claiming that Edwin or Fiona designed that kind of technology. I'd like to think it was an invention of the Pizzaplex era. But there is another traditionally blue character that is used to keep M2 contained in Secret of the Mimic, Moon, from Moon.exe. I'll have more to say about that game as a whole in Part 3. Trust me, it is incredibly important to the Tulpa David theory, but think about it. Moon might have been the first iteration of the Cradle, meant to keep M2 safe in his bedroom by Edwin, the Moon, but Son, Fiona, wanted to use it to make M2 fully into David, which we see having blue eyes when in that state. There are 2 text logs in Secret of the Mimic which I believe can point us towards this concept.
Edwin, please talk to me. We need to stop it together. Here are the blueprints for the Cradle. It can keep David safe and provide boundaries. It's a type of computer, and it's bigger than anything you've done before. If you won't finish the program, consider building the Cradle. It will keep people safe.
The Cradle is a type of computer. We activate the program Cradle.exe from the surveillance room of Edwin's home office on a terminal labeled Mechanical X-Form Experimental Storage number 1. But the Cradle itself isn't a program, it's a computer which can run a program called Cradle.exe. But we don't see anything happen to M2 after we activate the program. In fact, it's after we activate the program that the Mimic finally chases us without wearing a costume, just as itself.
Edwin, I am sending you a technician. He has your M2 blueprints as well as executive access. While the M2 began as a copy of my program, I believe it can become something more. It wasn't me. It was different. Somehow, it has been damaged and is malfunctioning.
M2 exists in an unfinished state, and as we see in the log about the Cradle, so is the Cradle. We have not seen the last of either of these 2 things, which is fairly obvious. I mean, if that was the last time we'd seen M2, where would we even go with the story? But I think, and this is pure speculation, that William Afton could have used the Cradle program, finished it himself, and then used it to contain M1 and M2 until the time of ruin, at which point the entire infrastructure that had been keeping these 2 things safe had began to crumble, which allowed for Cassie to inadvertently set this thing free. And there you have it, the origins of MXES, in my rough, speculative estimation. But I want to end this video off with a final mystery that has plagued the fandom since Security Breach released. Fucking Princess Quest. But why? Princess Quests 1 through 3 seem pretty simple. Yellow princess with a dark, shadowy other half, associated with the colors red and purple, fighting dark rabbit creatures in order to vanquish the purple Glitchtrap monster locked behind a green gate of digital mimic programming. It's obviously the story of Vanessa and Vanny breaking free from Glitchtrap's control. We even see the red-eyed Vanny mask and the purple bow left on the floor in the ending comic strip right after. And to that I say, yes. But that is only the surface level. And to anyone wanting to tell me that the princess is Cassidy because of a sprite name that was removed by the developers, shut the fuck up. But now that I'm talking to people above the intelligence of the average person on FNAF Twitter, let's analyze the deeper visual symbolism of Princess Quest. I made the point in part 2 that Vanessa is primarily associated with yellow. But you know what other woman in this franchise is heavily associated with the color yellow? No, not Cassidy. It's Fiona. We even see a giant Chica staring at us during Princess Quest 3. Does that mean that somehow Fiona's ghost is haunting this machine, acting as the savior of Vanessa's mind so she can break free from Afton's control? No. We have no evidence that Fiona's spirit lingered at all after the Fall Fest fire, and this is not about to start convincing me. But what I do think this means is that we can tie Fiona and Vanessa together in a way, narratively. Gregory is obviously an echo of David Murray and the Crying Child, however deliberate and in-universe that's really meant to be. And David is, in himself, sort of an echo of his own father, Edwin. So who's to say Vanessa can't act as a sort of metaphorical descendant of Fiona? She at least takes up a very similar role, which Elizabeth does too, a woman associated with the color yellow that has been taken advantage of by the men in her life. Fiona with Edwin, Elizabeth with her father William, and Vanessa by William in the form of Glitchtrap. Maybe the real ghost haunting this franchise was sexism the whole time. But we also get some very interesting symbols that tie into F10 and 4, as opposed to the living Fiona Murray, whose relationship with the color yellow is not as strong, but still present. We see various instances of tree symbolism and wooden furniture that calls forward in a way to David's bedroom at the end of Secret of the Mimic storyteller ending. And we consistently see wooden things and trees associated with F10. The log cabin we meet the Sun Witch at in Moon.exe, the fact that the storyteller podium at the end of the secret ending in David's bedroom is one of various game equivalents to the storyteller program in Tales from the Pizzaplex, which takes the form of a baobab tree with a white tiger head on top of it, the fact that the Fiona puppet wires of doom snake through the Pizzaplex like roots. I mean, come on, it's right there. Trees, specifically when recreated in artificial ways, are heavily associated with F10, because she is an artificial recreation of the nurturing nature of a real tree. Fiona. We also see green and purple everywhere, but I'd like to focus on this specific image at the final moments of Princess Quest 3. The door, framed with pulsating purple growths, but locked behind a square green lock with little pixelated code lines running across it. This is the final point I want to make with this video. Princess Quest represents the battle between Glitchtrap's two sides, the dark, shadowy, and twisted soul of William Afton reaching out to corrupt Vanessa's mind, and the princess who wants to save and protect her. F10 and 4. Think about it. If Glitchtrap is a copy of the M1 program, similar to how M2 is, who's to say there isn't still F10 stuck in Glitchtrap with Afton's soul? And even if that isn't exactly the case, it'd still be incredibly thematically poignant if somehow a piece of M1 was trapped in the Princess Quest consoles along with Vanessa's mind. It's that metaphorical lineage, the bright, golden woman who shines like the sun, vanquishing the dark, violet shadow man. It isn't just Vanessa or F10 and 4 or any one being. The princess is an abstract representation of the fight against Glitchtrap. And in unlocking the green digital lock on Vanessa's mind by using the Glitchtrap plush, we are using the enemy's very weapon against it to free ourselves from its tyrannical clutches. And with that, I gotta go start making part 3. And remember, one day, you're going to die.